It's prime time, y'all, and I don't mean sports. I'm talking about primer. This right here versus this right here, and which one should you use for what project? Well, let me explain for you. If you like me and you have two products that do the exact same thing, why use one over the other? It's simple. Because one will get the job done a lot more efficient and a lot faster. But how do you know which one to use? Well, my theory is simple, all right? You got the airbrush primer right here. You can run this stuff right through your airbrush as long as you mix it right. And then we have this big old rattle spray can right here. You know how I know it rattles? That's how I know it rattles. This right here, I love this to death right here. This is the primer that I ultimately use for almost everything I do, but why not use this one, Tony? Well, you use this one too. Let's say I was painting something as small as this guy right here, right? I could run this primer right here, right through my trusty airbrush back there, and get the same effect I would get if I was using one of these. I mean, they both do the same thing, right? They really do. But this right here can get the job done a lot faster. When I decide what primer I like to use, I think about what it is I'm going to be painting, right? Am I going to be painting one of these little guys right here first? Or am I going to be painting something humongous and big like this base right here? You see this right here? This is huge, right? If you don't know which primer to use for your projects, sometimes the best primer to use is the one that you know will work all the time. Because if I was to go ahead and paint something as big as this, right? There is no way in heck I'd want to use my little old airbrush primer to try to get all that coverage. It would just not be right. But let's say I was doing something like this little guy right here. This little one right here. It's cute, isn't he? Could use something like this. Run this black primer right through your airbrush, and all of a sudden you get the same effect as this, just on a smaller scale. So now that we have a little introduction on airbrush primer versus rattle can primer, why don't we go take a look back here and spray something, and we'll see the difference and why you should use this over this. Or hell, just use this all the damn time like I do. Let's go. See? It gets the job done. Prime's really nice. You can see the coverage. There's really good coverage. Right? Look at that. And it works nice. Flows right through the airbrush, nice and smooth. I really like this primer. Look at that. You guys see? Beautiful. Nice, nice. See that? That's why. See, this is why we don't use this for something as big as this, because look at all of this coverage I have. I got this big base, and I need to cover this whole thing. I need to cover all of this with this little airbrush. Why waste the time? We're gonna make this process a lot easier and speed it up. Now, trust the old rattle can. We're gonna take this bad boy out right here and just watch. Same thing. Look at that, you see? Look at that. So much easier, so much faster. You see why? Look at that. Done. As you'll see, the time it took me to paint this little guy right here, right? I painted this with the little, right this, right? Same amount of time it took me to paint this with this. I painted this big old base with this right here. So check it out. When to use airbrush primer versus rattle can primer. Oh, now that we know when to use this versus this, I would love to hear from you guys. What primers do you guys use? Do you like to use the airbrush primer, or do you like to use the rattle can? Because to me, hey, I'd never use this again because I have this right here, because it gives more coverage a lot faster, and I don't have to clean out my airbrush when I'm done. So if you're like me and you don't like a big mess, you don't like to clean out your airbrush when you're done to get the project moving a lot faster, stick with this. But there is nothing wrong with using this little guy right here. Not only does it give you a lot more control and flexibility with your airbrush pressure, it still gets the job done. It just may take you 2 days longer, but hey, when time is not of the essence, go with something as trusty as this. But if you're on a time crunch, you got big projects to do, why waste your time with this little guy when you got the big boy right here? Follow me. And I would love to know, which primers do you guys use out there? Are you the bottle guy with your airbrush, or are you the rattle can like your boy? Holla.